let's talk. One of the things that I have had the pleasure and the honor of doing in this kingdom is I have seen a lot of traditions that I was there when they got started. I remember either the first occurrence or one of the early occurrences that now are accepted as this is what we do. One of the really cool examples is in Onsteora when we give an award of arms. It's tradition. Like every time it's done that I've seen it, you'll go up and the herald will read the award and everyone cheers, and then the presiding noble or royal will stand up and they'll stand up next to you and they'll turn you around. They'll be like, "Okay, turn around," and they usually put their fingers right on your shoulders and they go, "Onsteora, I present to you your newest lord or lady," or whatever the appropriate title is now. And that's, God, I've been doing that for years now, decades. But I remember who started that, and that was Count Baron Silveraxe when he was on the throne. He was the one who started it. And I remember a lot of nobles would do that, and they would stand up and they would read, in their courts, they would have the herald read the Award of Arms. And they would say, "As our king has done, I will follow example," and they will do that. Now it's, this is the tradition. One of the more interesting traditions that I was there for the first one of and has persisted is the hero's portion. Now, what is that? Baron Ian Dungillen, barony of Northkeep, started this years ago. I honestly don't remember how far back, but I know it was a long time ago. And it was done at Winter Kingdom, which is their collegium event, which has a feast at the end of the day. And the tradition is that about a third of the way into feast, and they always have long feasts, so this gives you some time to do this, the Baron would stand up and would present this huge tray to the audience, and on it's a cut of venison. He was very specific about venison, that I have a deer that I brought down with my own hands. He'd go out, and I believe he bow hunts, but this was a deer that he felled with his own skill. This was not something that he farmed out to someone else. And he would explain the hero's portion. He said, "The finest cut of meat, and I present it to someone I consider a hero." And he would call out the person. He would name the person, walk up to them at their place, at their table, and he would explain to the entire audience why this person was a hero to him, and he would present them the hero's portion, and then they would take one of the cuts of meat, or they would cut a tiny piece off, and they would put it on their plate, and then a few minutes later they would stand up and take the hero's platter, and then they would name someone who was a personal hero for them. And this could go on for an hour. I watched, and I know that sounds tedious, and it certainly had its tedious moments in its history. I'm not going to say it didn't. But some of the stories and the examples that came out of that practice are uplifting. Some of them are tearjerkers. I remember when Lady Leodin, who I've had on the show, she received a hero's portion for her work with children, not surprisingly. And she sat there for like 10 minutes, and I went over to check on her because I'm friends with her, had been for years at that point. And she said she couldn't think of anyone else. She wanted to present this in memory of her father who had just passed away. And for me, that's an extremely noble gesture, but how do you do it? What's the logistics of this? So I said, okay, let me go talk to the landed nobles. Let me go talk to the Baron and Baroness. And I went up, and it was Bjork and Elizabeth, and I went up to the head table quietly, and I explained to them that the Lady Leodin would like to present a hero's portion in memory of her late father, and in memory to those who cannot be here. Would you be all right if we, because she asked me to help present it, because Leiden does not have public speaking voice in that environment, and she asked me if I could present it, and I would present it in dedication and memory to those who could not be there. And their excellencies talked to each other, very specifically talked to each other to make sure there were nothing about this they didn't want to see happen. They liked the idea. And I went back, and Leiden and her daughter and I stood up, and I held the platter up for Leiden, and I announced that we were presenting the next hero's portion in memory of her late father and in dedication to everyone who could not be with us anymore, who are heroes to us. And I'll be honest with you, there probably wasn't a dry eye in the place, and I am the last person to cry, and I had 2 leaky faucets. I have seen heroes portions given for the goofiest things, but it's good goofy because it brings a smile to your face. It makes you sit back and laugh and remember that you can enjoy this game. And I've seen heroes portions given for truly dramatic moments of personal heroism. I do know that there have been some heroes portions given for people who intervene in situations which were legitimately dangerous, people who put themselves at risk to help others. I know I've given the heroes portion to a young man, teen, and it wasn't that he did anything particularly heroic in the grand scheme of things, but he was doing more as a 15-year-old, as a leader, as someone who inspires other in his peer group, than a lot of us were doing in our 30s or 40s, and that to me is heroic. So I remember giving that. And Ian, he was on the throne a number of years and he stepped down, but the next Baron did it, and the next Baron did it, next Baron and Baroness rather, and the Baron and Baroness after that did it. And it's a tradition that has endured. It's a good tradition. Matter of fact, Zebedia, who is a pelican out of Northkeep. Northkeep is the barony where the hero's portion comes from. And I don't use the word mistress. Zebedia has picked a specific title that every time I try and say it, I get it wrong. So we're just going to go with she's a pelican. I believe it's an Arabic title, to be fair, but this is entirely me not wanting to butcher the pronunciation. During their regular baronial event, she has her own version of the hero's portion where I'm trying to remember how she starts. I think she goes out and finds 3 or 4 people that she considers heroes, and she gives them a gift. And then she gives them these cards and says, now you go find someone who you think is a hero, give them this card, and tell them to come back to me at the table, and I'll be in the feast hall. And when those people come to the feast hall, they get a serving of her homemade chocolate, which I'll just say right now, Zebedia's chocolate, you could raise armies with that chocolate. It is that good. And I know a couple of times she's had some gifts or trinkets or largesse that go with it. And it's the same mechanism. And the important part of this, the really important part of the hero's portion, is it is giving the general populace a venue to recognize, to publicly recognize, and thank the people who inspire them. And that mechanism is very powerful. There are a lot of people who are recognized in the hero's portion that there is no award for what they have done in that instant. There is no statute recognition in kingdom law or even baronial law. These people are recognized for doing, sometimes it's a singular act, sometimes it's a body of work, sometimes it's just them being them, but they are recognized for something good at the right time. And it's a highly personal thank you from another individual. And by removing the royalty and the nobility from it and giving it that grassroots, that giving it that organic base, where this is a platform for one person to publicly thank another. It makes the hero's portion a powerful tool to both inspire and encourage. I was there for the first one. I remember we all kind of rolled our eyes like, what's this? I never heard of this. And I watched it happen again this past year, just a few months ago. And it's changed over the years, and there's different criteria, different traditions, and things get tweaked. But at the core, it's still an awesome tradition. It's still an amazing activity to let people thank people for being awesome. So, the heroes portion. That's the tradition I wanted to highlight today. I wanted to share that, and I wanted to let you all kind of think on that. And what kind of traditions come from where you are? What's something that you know where it comes from, and everyone else just kind of assumes it's always been that way? What's a practice or a ceremony? What's something that has a story behind it? More importantly, has longevity to it. It's been going on for years and will probably endure for years more. Talk to me. Share in the notes down below. This is something I'm actually very curious about. I want to learn more, and I want to create a venue where my audience and I can have that conversation. But until next time, see you at the next event. Until then, goodbye. God bless.